You know, I hear this a whole lot when it comes to Hollywood, particularly in the case of films like Star Wars or Rings of Power or She-Hulk. It's the topic of subversion. Now, subversion is a concept that I think can be absolutely phenomenal if used correctly. But the problem is that so rarely is it implemented well anymore. People assume that just because subversion is performed, that automatically produces art or quality. But like all art, just splattering a canvas with a brush does not a painting make. Just throwing a stone on a pedestal and calling it a statue is simply inaccurate, and recording your own flatulence does not mean you're a professional musician. Although, and to be fair, given the quality of art nowadays, perhaps we're not too far off from that reality, which is very sad indeed, but let's stay on track. So, about subversion. Some of you are probably not quite sure what I mean by subversion. What is that? Let's create a scenario, and I think you'll see what I'm talking about. So in this scenario, a knight learns that a princess is being held captive in a castle, and she longs to be free, but a fearsome monster is holding her captive. So the knight decides to go and save her. He goes to the castle to free the princess, and discovers a maiden and a dragon in the castle. The knight prepares to fight the dragon and slay it to save the princess. Sounds like a typical fantasy story, correct? However, just as the knight is about to kill the dragon, suddenly the maiden drops a cage down to capture the knight. It turns out that the dragon was actually the princess, a dragon princess, and the maiden was, in fact, an evil witch who was holding the dragon princess hostage for her magic. And there's your twist. And that is the essence of subversion. Subversion is when the expectation is flipped on its head, when the thing you anticipate or believe to be the case is, in fact, not the case, or shockingly exposed to be more complicated than originally portrayed. And you're already familiar with a few common subversive strategies in writing. A common one that we see nowadays is the damsel saving herself, and we girls don't need to be saved by no man. We can save ourselves. You've heard that before. There's also the sympathetic bad guy. Oh, this bad guy, he's not doing it because he's actually evil. He's doing it for the greater good. He's doing it for something good. Or the murderous hero. That's a common one. Take Death Note or Deadpool, heroes who kill people to do good, There you go. These subversive elements have actually been used so often that they, in fact, have started to lose some of their shocking and creative quality. The reason we have these traits is because at one point they were shocking to us. They no longer are. Now we almost expect damsels to save themselves. In fact, if a damsel's actually in danger and a man has to save her, that gets ratted on by the media, but whatever. We expect all bad guys to have sympathetic backstories or lore. And, okay, we all laughed our ass off as Deadpool shot his villain in the head in the middle of a hero speech. Yeah, there's a sign that subversive traits are here to stay and that some of them have lost some of their luster. But, yes, some subversive traits do get old, as we just said. That doesn't mean subversion can't still be useful, and we'll get to when it can. But first, I want to talk about the real problem of subversion. What it's used as an excuse or crutch for poor writing. That's when it really hurts itself. That's when subversiveness really hurts. Because what you're doing is you're basically saying, I can't create a good story with a twist unless I make some kind of subversion. I need to make some kind of lazy subversion to make people think I'm a better writer than I actually am. I think the saddest excuse comes down to, weren't you surprised? It wasn't what you expected, was it? And that is the nature of subversion. You did not expect this outcome. You did not expect this sudden turn of events. You did not expect this truth to be revealed. And this can be done well. And to be fair, in some modern films and books I've seen, there are moments I did not see coming and were certainly subversive. But does that mean they're good? For example, I did not expect Luke Skywalker to go from young, hopeful warrior who believed enough in the good of others that he spared his own father and believed in his redemption, and then into a grumpy old hermit who thought it was time for the Jedi to die because there was no hope left. I didn't expect that. But I wonder, is that a good thing? I certainly didn't expect the ending finale to She-Hulk to be a fourth wall break. I did not see that coming. But is that what the show needed? And I certainly didn't expect Master Chief to take off his helmet in the pilot episode of Halo and then reveal the whole time that he was secretly a puppet of the UNSC, going against everything we knew about him from the games. I didn't expect it. Granted, you're right. I did not see that coming. But at the same time, I wouldn't have expected chocolate-flavored unicorns to come raining from the sky and destroy all the Covenant with rainbow lasers. Just because you don't expect something doesn't mean it's of high quality. Here's the hard truth. Subversion only works if two criteria are met. First, The twist must make sense for the characters and world in which they inhabit. Look, you don't have to expect it, but you have to be able to step back and say, oh, wow, that actually works. I see how that works now. There's currently a lot of debate right now about canon and how important it is, and I'll probably do a whole writing room on that topic too. But the truth is that worlds have rules and establish order. When you create a world that you're writing, you make the rules to it. And they can be whatever rules you want, but once you make them, you're bound by them. And I've talked about this before. This is not a bad thing. Having rules is important because it creates the stakes. It creates the limitations that the characters are bound to and how they work around or with those limitations. You must abide by these rules. In my recent Legends video, I told the story of a Zhang named Tian Tilong, a general from the Wulan army, who lost his wife 10 years ago in a campaign where she bravely sacrificed herself so she wouldn't be used as a hostage to get him killed. Throughout the story, the Emperor and Tilong, who are friends, are talking, as all friends do, about the events and how sad they both are that they went the way they did. But when Tilong leaves, through internal monologue, it's revealed that the whole event was orchestrated by the Emperor himself, who had secretly wanted Tilong to die in the battle out of fear of his abilities as a leader and fear that one day he may usurp him. He now uses him as a useful tool because without his wife, Tilong is broken and sad and miserable. Now, this was a twist that I added. Whether or not it's of good quality is up to the reader, although everyone I've asked said that they liked it. But the fact is, this is subversive and surprising, and even if it is, it still makes sense for their character and how the worlds work. I didn't break anything. I didn't destroy any world lore to make that happen. And the problem is, in other mediums today, we see them break world lore to make things happen. If y'all are familiar with me for some time, I did a whole response series to a video about the Legend of Korra, and in it I pointed out that there were established rules to certain forms of bending, and the Legend of Korra breaks and bends those rules to make its payoffs work. Bloodbending, for example. Bloodbending was a set-up style of waterbending where a woman who had been tortured to the point of exhaustion and desperation by the Fire Nation learned how to bend the blood of another human and force them like a puppet to do her whim, but she could only do it on the light of a full moon, and it still required a certain degree of movement to make it happen. However, in the Legend of Korra, they've tossed that aside and said that there's now a family lineage of this. There's these group of waterbenders who are born to a family who can now bloodbend without the need of movement and without the need of a full moon. This broke the rules previously established. Now, the obvious response to this is, oh, but come on, the payoff is good. Doesn't that make a more intimidating villain? Granted, yes, I would not expect this to be the case because it breaks the rules. Granted, it may make a more intimidating villain, but it also makes me less likely to believe it. I am now shown, wow, you did not care about the consistency of your world to give me this payoff. Here's the thing. What if a person actually predicts the payoff? What if someone actually smart connects the dots and says, oh my gosh, this could be the connection? What if instead of doing that, one of the things that I talked about was, what if instead of it being revealed that they just have a family lineage that they could bend blood without the full moon, what if instead they still had to follow the rules? So, Amon, the main bad guy who bloodbends, what if every time he steals someone's bending, which is a thing that he can do, he always does it on a full moon, never any other time, always on a full moon. He always does it at night, and he always does it when a crowd of onlookers can see him do it, but he never makes any huge obvious movements. Or maybe he does it and has like a gauntlet on so people think that it may be a technology. But Tenzin, who would be aware of his mother's stories about bloodbending, probably connected the dots himself, going, it always happens on a full moon, it's always at night, it's always done kind of subtly. What if it's bloodbending? And then Amon could use that to, kind of twist no, you see, now they're lying about what I can do, turn it into its own thing. There are ways you can use the rules to play up the story and make it work. But when you break the rules, you question the audience's intelligence. You basically say, oh, forget the rules. We want to make our payoff, and the payoff should never come at the expense of consistency. That's the first rule. The second rule, the second criteria. The result that replaces the expectation must also have its own payoff or satisfying possibility behind it. In other words, whatever you're replacing the original outcome you expected with, it has to be better than or just as good as what you were going to get. For example, the twist that Darth Vader is in fact Luke's father opens lots of doors for both emotional struggle And it creates a new conflict for Luke, who can't bring himself to kill his own father, having learned the truth of his greatest enemy's identity. We did not expect the great evil to be the father of our hero, since we'd heard that he murdered the hero's father, but it still adds up.
From a certain point of view.
But the most important thing is it presents a greater story, character arc, and conflict than we had before. See, you can still get your payoff. The payoff is still there, but we made it work within the rules of the lore, and it was almost more satisfying than the idea that he was just his father's murderer. Now, instead of just a story of good versus evil, it's also son versus father, light versus dark, internal conflict versus external reality, past failings versus future opportunities. The scene when Luke and Vader talk on Endor before going to see the Emperor is a meaningful one, especially when Vader says,
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
Suit your feelings, Father. You can't do this. I feel the conflict within you. Let go of your hate.
It is too late for me, son.
As if to imply that Vader recognizes that what he's doing is likely wrong, and perhaps he even has reservations. Perhaps he regrets a lot of his choices that got him here, but he's set on his course and he feels he cannot escape his destiny. You would not have this had we not had the twist that it was actually Luke's father. That's a good twist. That's a good shocker. That's something we did not expect, but it still works. And it gives us a very satisfying payoff. I think this is a false understanding about Subversion. I think this is a false understanding. People think that if you follow all the rules of the world that you created, you can't have good payoffs. No, you totally can. You 100% can. But the problem is, and when I say problem, I mean in general, with the state of world and art now, it's that we've become lazy. People don't want to actually try and make meaningful, you know what? It just came to me. Literally while I was thinking, it just came to me. Thinking about Legend of Korra again. Amon, at one point, showed that when he was being bloodbent, his brother was trying to bloodbend him, but he walked through it. He resisted the bloodbending.
You've never faced bending like mine.
I tried to connect the dots there. I said, why is he able to do that? He can take away bending. He can seem to resist other people who try to bend him, and he's a master of martial arts, and he also created this cool electronic technology and all that kind of stuff. What if he's a cyborg? What if he's a cybernetic human? I mean, it would make some degree of sense. Sparky Boom Man from the first series had cybernetic limbs. And in this modern age where we have cars and blimps and all this modern technology, sure, Mr. Sato might have been able to craft him some mechanical limbs. Maybe when he was oppressed or abused by firebenders, that's what made him lose his limbs and he had to replace them with cybernetics. That would actually make some degree of sense. That would actually work to some degree, right? I think that would make a lot of sense. And in fact, it would still work within the rules of the world. And it would also create a meaningful twist. The reality that this person is not quite human. He can't bend, but he doesn't have blood in his veins to be bent. He is an abnormality. In fact, it would make sense because when his brother goes, "What are you?" he goes, "I am the solution."
What are you?
I am the solution.
I thought his solution is technology. He wants to bring equality to the world, equality between benders and non-benders. Technology is the great, solution. Technology is the equalizer. It is the common denominator that could connect the two. Lark and I used to talk about all the time. What if there were guns in The Legend of Korra? That would be the ultimate way for the non-benders to level up to the benders. You can't really bend a bullet unless you're a metal bender, but that's not here nor there. But the point is, you can still get your payoff. That would be an interesting sudden twist, the idea that there's now a cyborg in this world. Sure, you would need to connect some dots. You'd need to jump a few hoops, I grant you. But just the reality that, he's a bloodbender. Who breaks the rules? It doesn't work. Back to what I was saying. Laziness. Pure and simple laziness. I think that one of the problems we have today is that no one wants to actually put forth effort into anything, especially art. Making meaningful and impactful works of art has become a hassle for people. Why actually make an effort to make quality artwork and unique story twists and surprises that make sense within your world when going to the least common denominator is just the more, easy option. It goes back to what Dumbledore said. People are going to have to make a choice between what is right and what is easy. And too many people choose what is easy. People don't want to think, those rules, those simple rules that make everything so difficult. I just want to do things my own way. I want that payoff. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. Who cares that there were clear-cut rules in the world you're working with? So long as it gives me the cool twist, and I think it's totally serviceable. Bloodbending has established rules and conventions made to limit it? No. Lightning bending was something only a select few firebenders could attain because of the fierce mental and spiritual disciplines required? Screw that. The Force required training to use effectively? Are you kidding? And the scallywag pirate and rogue actually had a nugget of wisdom to him the whole time we never really recognized? Are you kidding? That's not as meaningful as the payoff, as the big punchline. Now bloodbending can be done through family lineage rather than through dark and sadistic experiments with waterbending. Lightning bending is so common we can get them on a factory line. The Force is not only easily mastered by a girl who only just learned about it, she's outperforming trained dark side users. And Jack Sparrow actually was just a complete moron the whole time who only got a bit lucky. Isn't that good though? I mean, you didn't expect it, so you must like it. Well, you're right about the fact that I didn't expect it. I certainly didn't expect you to take brilliant storytelling, world building, and character creation and just shit all over it. But I can't say that this is a satisfying feeling either. It's just laziness, guys. Simple and utter laziness. Guys, I know I started this video talking about subversion, but I think this is more talk about storytelling laziness. No one wants to try anymore. I'm not about to sit here and say I'm some outstanding author of deep and meaningful quality, but damn it, I know better than to just fake out my readers and pretend that alone should earn me praise. Twists and subversions should be tools to enrich the experience of a story, not simply be thrown into a story to say, look, I'm clever. Subversion is not a crutch. It should be a tool. It should be something used to help enrich the story, help engross the audience, and make them feel satisfied for keeping up with the world lore. When Toph learned to metal bend, when Luke managed to truly understand the Force and realize who his father truly was, when Snape was the one who turned out to be Harry's biggest ally the whole time. Some of the best twists and sudden surprises in stories are told to us, and as we learn about them, as we see them, and the dots connect in our head, we go, wow, that's incredible. What amazing storytelling that all this time, this is what was going on. This was the secret. This was the truth behind all the curtains. And you go, this is amazing, because you could see how it came to be. You could see how the story unfolded to create this set of events, even if you never saw it coming. But why do that? That requires effort and hard work and talent. No, just give us a shocking twist that provide something you think the audience wants to see. See, that's the thing. You shouldn't do it based on what you think your audience wants to see, because it's what you want to see. Make something that works for the world you're creating. You want to create a cool Jedi story who rises up to take the place of Luke Skywalker? Fine. I don't mind that. You want to tell the story of the next Avatar to replace Aang? Go ahead. I don't mind that. No one would mind that. But the reality is, when you create stories within these worlds, within any world, in fact, for my potential writers out there, you have to abide by those rules, and you have to consider the payoff you're creating. Does it fit within the rules of the world you've created? Does it make sense for the characters that you've applied this twist to? And is the payoff one that is equal to what we expected to happen, or better than? I'll be honest, not many people were cheering praises and singing songs when they saw where Luke ended up. Just a thought. Anyway, I think I've ranted long enough. This video turned into something I really didn't expect, but we're going to keep the title because, guys, I barely script these. These always turn into rants and rambles when I really get into them, but that's what makes them genuine, right? Anyway, guys, I hope you did enjoy despite this ramble, and as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.